All righty, we're at the top of the hour. Looks like a few folks are still joining us. I'm sure that more will as we go, but let's kick this off. Can someone raise their hand? Let's see who it is. A few folks just playing around with the buttons, but we've disabled camera and mic for our participants because we have a really tight agenda again. But at the end of the session, we'll be sharing contact information so you can reach out to me or to Bear Williams at Ojt Solutions with any of the questions that you might have. Glad to provide follow-up. So thank you all and welcome back to part 2 of the Blackboard webinar series for California government. I want to thank our value-added reseller and sponsor for this series, Ojt Solutions. Thank all of our client speakers for participating in today's session. And most of all, thank all of you for joining us and making the time. In last week's session, we covered an overview and demonstration of the Blackboard Learning Solution. We also touched on CDT and CalHR's Enterprise HR initiative, a feature roadmap for Blackboard Learn and Blackboard Collaborate, and we also heard from CalLearns Administrator at CalHR, Brent Seavers, on the Nominate module within Blackboard Registration and Management. If you weren't able to attend last week, that's okay. At the end of today's session, you'll hear from our customer success advocate, Nick Wachowski. He's going to talk to us about our user community, and he'll also tell you how to access last week and today's recording should you want to go back and review anything. So for today's session, I am Tom Herrmann. I'm your senior account executive. I'm the picture to the far left here, although I'm more well-groomed these days. That was my COVID look, I guess you could say. And today we're going to get really hyper-focused on Blackboard registration and management. So we will have Joe Favero, VP of Client Services, co-present with our 4 clients here from the state to demonstrate how Blackboard's grown its capabilities to meet client need and California state-specific challenges. So first, we'll have Melissa Glau from the Department of Conservation introduce you to the Contracts module, which will impact any department tracking and training with external providers. And then we'll have Mindy Van Egden from the Department of Rehabilitation. Mindy, congratulations on the promotion to Manager of the Staff Development Unit. And she will discuss the benefits of the Delegate Manager module. Following Mindy, we'll have Prabdeep Papari from the Department of Child Support Services cover the 80/40/20/20 module and dashboard, which assists with reporting on mandatory state trainings based on job role. And then Debbie Fredericks from the Department of Parks and Recreation will introduce us to the POST module, impacting organizations with law enforcement officers. Then Joe will take us through a number of roadmap features for registration and management as well before Nick Wachowski, our Blackboard Client Success Manager, wraps up by describing our California government user community, how you all can access each other as Blackboard clients here, as well as how to access the recordings from the webinar series. So before we jump into our client presentations, let's review the components of our solution. Last week, we focused on Learn, on Collaborate, and on Ally, where accessible content is created and delivered to your employees. Today, we focus on registration and management here on the top left corner, your system of record for all training within your department. Here you can map the solution to your organization's hierarchy. You can do things like provide role-based dashboards to learners and managers so they can effectively track training. push out automated notifications to keep learners on track, provide multiple registration options, including bulk enrollment, enrollment into learning plans based on job role, and course catalogs with self-registration. Last, in-depth reporting options are also available here to create and save the necessary reports across your user base. You'll see today that our clients tailor registration and management to meet the needs of their department. And that's exactly what our clients are going to be talking about here. So now I'm going to hand the mic over to Melissa Glau, Staff Services Manager for the Department of Conservation, to talk about how the contracts module was developed for DOC. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, so I'm Melissa Glau, Staff Service Manager, Department of Conservation. I've been working at DOC for about 7.5 years. And before Blackboard, we tried to implement another LMS, which was not very successful. So we definitely held Blackboard to a higher standard. In fact, the Blackboard team assigned an acronym to our project, KMH, Keep Melissa Happy. And today we'll show you a part of what we've accomplished together. One of our largest challenges, and one that many departments can relate to, is the ability to effectively track training with third-party training providers and the associated contracts. To solve this challenge, Blackboard partnered with us to develop the contracts module. DOC, like other departments, have many employees taking training with CalHR and other third-party training vendors. The contracts module tracks the dollar amounts associated with external training providers as employees sign up and take training. As funds are drawn down, employees are not allowed to sign up for training until funds are replenished. This has helped automate what once was a very manual process. Now I'll pass it back to Jero to show you the contracts module. Thanks.
Thanks, Melissa. Just checking, can you see my screen? I just want to make sure the sharing's working.
Looks good.
Okay. Awesome. So good afternoon, good morning, everybody. As Tom mentioned, my name is Joe. I work with the Genius Blackboard registration team. I've had the luxury with working with most of the agencies in California. As you can see here, we've had very high-level technical discussions. So this is literally back from 3 or 4 years ago when we first met with the DOC team to capture their business flows. So back pre-COVID, we used to come on site and sit down and whiteboard all the flows to make sure that we're covering sort of the process that's important to each agency. In each agency, this tends to be a little bit different. As Melissa mentioned, we titled this one called Project KMH, Keep Melissa Happy, because she was the one that needs to make this system work for her to manage her training needs. So just kind of an idea of sort of the high-level, very technical discussions that we go through when we work with clients, so being a little bit facetious there. One of the needs, again, DOC was actually our first agency as part of the VHSS contract. And one of the things we found out, which we hadn't run into before, was this need to manage contracts. The idea is they want to be able to allocate money into specific contracts and then decrement from that account to know where their balance is. And when they get to a certain point where it gets below the contract amount, we stop enrollments into courses. So we kind of walked through the flow, sort of the business logic that was involved, and built out what we call the contracts module that's actually being used with many agencies besides the DOC. As you can see here, we're using the DOC test system. There's a new tab that can be enabled to turn on the contracts module. It's pretty simple. On the contract side, you start entering all the different contracts and the amounts that each contract has. Now, to further divide this is that even though you may have a contract that has $50,000 in it or something like that, you may want to allocate that to the different divisions. So you'll see here, for instance, for this CalHR 4018-008 contract, you see it's labeled here 3 times, but it's per division. So what we can do now is, even though the contract has a total amount of $50,000, we can give $10,000 to one division, $20,000 to a different division, to ensure that not one division is using all the funds from a specific contract. So here you'll see that these contracts are set up in the system. You put in your amounts. You have tools over here on the far right-hand side to be able to allocate more funds, decrement funds from the account, transfer it from one division to another. As people come in and they enroll into courses, it's invisible to them pretty much until the point where we get below a balance. Once you get below the amount associated for that contract for the course, then the user is informed that there are no more funds left to enroll in the course. These contracts are like spreadsheets. It's an active ledger. So you'll see here that we started out with the initial balance of $1,000, but as people come in and take the course, whether they're taking courses externally through the API or somebody actually takes a course in the system as a test user, you'll see here Christine took one of the courses, we will decrement the amount of the course from the contract, so you'll actually see at any point in time where your balance is. Now, if somebody comes in here and tries to take another course that exceeds the $16 balance, they will no longer be allowed to take that course. So again, the people like Melissa can come back in and add more funds to the contract for each of the divisions or move funds around from one division to the other. But it gives us that safety valve to ensure that people are not exceeding the contracted amounts that have been allocated by the agency. The last piece of the puzzle is to tie the course/offering to a contract. That's pretty simple. Here we can come in, we can select any section that's in the system, edit this information. You'll see that you can now assign a contract to this section. So now anybody who takes this course, and they'll say that this course costs $100 each time for each person, we will subtract $100 from this contract as a running ledger until we get to the minimum value. Most of the agencies use this tool very often. One of the enhancements that was actually done by one of the agencies that will push to everybody when we do the updates is the DMV actually added one extra feature called a low watermark. So they can set a low watermark per contract, and when that low watermark is hit, we will email whoever they've configured, typically the finance group, that this contract has met its minimum low watermark. So it's almost like preventative, so they can actually move the funds so that no user actually sees the message that they can no longer enroll into that course. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Tom. Hopefully you enjoyed the contracts module.
Thank you, Joe and Melissa. Now we're going to switch gears. I'm going to throw it over to Mindy Van Egden at the Department of Rehabilitation. And Mindy's going to take us through the Delegate Manager module.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning. My name is Mindy Van Egden, and I'm the training manager, the new training manager, over the staff development unit at the Department of Rehabilitation. We started working with Ojt and Blackboard back in about, I think it was like the middle of 2018, and rolled the LMS out to the department in 2020. We selected Blackboard for several reasons. Accessibility being the top priority for our department, since we do work with a lot of people with disabilities. Blackboard was unmatched when it came to accessibility, providing tools like Ally to help automate and assist with course accessibility as we develop training content. So we roughly have about 80 offices throughout California, and we serve about 30 units here locally at central office in Sacramento. We're currently talking with Blackboard about offering it out to our consumers, which is around 60,000 participants a year, which will be fun. We've solved many challenges with Blackboard, including automating the training request process, formerly known as the DR 1125. as well as staff gaining access to the mandatory trainings and our classification-specific courses we offer. So as soon as they're hired, they get those courses on their dashboard, which is really important to us, versus waiting several months, which is how it's been in the past. They had to wait several months to get access to those trainings. So today we're going to focus on the Delegate Manager module. The Delegate Manager module was initially created for the Department of Conservation and enhanced dramatically for us here at the Department of Rehabilitations. So managers like to take vacation. So we needed a way for them to be able to delegate someone to take over their course requests, withdrawals, and course completion requests, since it's part of our workflows. So the Delegate Manager module allows them to assign other managers in the department to handle these requests during their defined periods of time off. So we look forward to continually growing our programs at Ojt and Blackboard. So now I'm going to pass it over to Joe to demonstrate the module. Thank you.
Thanks, Mindy. Congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so again, hopefully I'm sharing. Just let me know if you can't see my screen. I'm going to show you sort of the Delegate Manager feature. There's not a lot there. It's pretty simple, but it is a use case that obviously needs to be considered when working with clients. As Mindy mentioned, managers do like to take vacations, and even though they take time off and hopefully they're enjoying themselves, business still goes on at the agencies themselves. You'll notice that obviously when we have courses in the system, one of the features that I would say all the agencies tend to use is this thing called course approvals, right? If a course requires approval, each agency tends to have their own flow as far as what an approval process is, right? Is it single level? Is it multiple level? The Department of Social Services has a very unique flow where we actually kind of go up there, almost an organizational tree until we get to certain levels as the final approval authority. So each course approval tends to be a little bit unique per client, and but I guess across the board, all the agencies need some sort of a course approval for courses that may have costs associated with it or ones that they're trying to limit enrollments. So once a course is configured, we obviously go through the approval process. But for those managers, as part of the flow that may be on vacation, we needed to build some sort of flag or some sort of way to flag who they are and then do what we call a delegate to a manager. So under the Management tab, we added actually a new feature called the Delegate Manager tool that shows up on the screen. So if I'm planning to go on vacation, I can go ahead and select Delegate. I could choose one of the managers from my staff. So I'll just use John Adams for now. And I can give it the point in time I'm going to be on vacation from today until next week on Monday. Now this adds this manager to my queue, so any requests for course enrollments, for course drops, for external approvals, all those features that are part of the system that require a manager or managers to go through and approve will also be routed to this person during that time frame. Not only will the original manager get this request, but the delegate manager will get this request, and he or she will be able to, on the behalf of that manager, approve or deny those requests. So it's a pretty simple tool, but it's a very useful case that is used quite a bit. What's nice about this is if you've got several periods of time, you can put multiple delegates in here for different periods of time and basically have this all set up prior to going on vacation, just in case you forget the day of. So again, this could be configured way prior to this, and again, those dates will be saved and stored in here for those delegate manager issues. With that, I'll turn it back over to Tom.
All right, thanks Mindy and Joe for that one. Now we're going to throw the ball over to Prab at the Department of Child Support Services to talk about the 80/40/2020 module and dashboard. Hey, Prob, thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Prob, and I'm with the Department of Child Support Services. I basically manage the training program at DCSS, and I'm responsible for basically ensuring mandatory training compliance. We began working with Blackboard in, I'd say, about summer of 2019. We specifically chose to partner with Taborda and Blackboard because of the solutions that they provided for a enterprise learning management system for HR. Their solutions basically helped us with compliance tracking and automating our training request process, which we use for external and internal trainings. They also provided a platform that tailored training delivery for our statewide child support professionals that are out in the counties. And so basically, while we solved a number of challenges with Blackboard, like many of you, our department also struggled with the manual tracking of the various mandatory leadership trainings. All of those trainings are subject to audit, and manual data entry gets to be tedious, and it can lead to errors. So basically, what we'll do today is we'll focus on that challenge. We worked with the Blackboard team to design administrative reports on the mandatory leadership training. So those are, for instance, say the 80-hour supervisory training, the 40-hour managerial training, the 20-hour CEA training, and then last but not least, the 20-hour biennial continuous leadership training. And so basically, the Blackboard team was able to kind of decipher all of the various CalHR rules that there are surrounding all of these, leadership trainings. And they, came up with a great solution for us. It's an automated report is what they came up for us. And basically pulling the report, it's literally as easy as a click of a button, One thing to note is in order to get these reports ran accurately, there are a few things that the Blackboard team has done for us on the back end, basically. So in Blackboard, on the Genius side, basically, and in Train, you can kind of easily designate a training as, mandatory for leadership, and you could designate which specific leadership training or which leadership training category each specific course falls into. So that helped us tremendously. And then another key thing to note is that on our end, basically, for the DCSS side, in order to run these reports accurately, we just kind of need to enter in the employee's appointment date. So say we have a brand new supervisor to the department, they start today. So we just kind of need to go into Blackboard and Genius and kind of pull up that employee's learner profile and enter in that that appointment date, and that kind of helps run the reports accurately. So basically, that's kind of what we've got for our solution at DCSS. And I'm going to hand it off to Joe here. He's going to go ahead and kind of demo this solution for you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Prob. Yes, Prob was very kind in the fact that, obviously we made it easy to click and run a report. The fun part was figuring out the business logic on the 80, 40, 20, 20. I think I must have collected maybe about 20 documents, and there was a lot of questions and answers, and trying to come up with the algorithm in order to automate those reports. And the end result ends up being, just click on a button and run a report, which seems simple. But from a connecting the dots perspective, there's a lot of pieces involved to build those reports. And I'll just go over a couple of these. I won't bore you with the details, but it first kind of starts with the courses that you build in the system and what we call the integration with enterprise HR. So due to the contract, we have this enterprise HR information, which is a module that was built into the system as part of this contract to capture all this information that's being sent to the enterprise HR team, the CDT team. One of the options they put onto the courses is to provide what we call the statewide training identifier. So any courses in your system that are flagged as supervisor training, the 40-hour managerial training, the 20-hour CEA training, or the ongoing training are pulled into this algorithm. So it starts with you defining on the courses which courses for us to consider when we build this report. So this is where the 80-40-20-20 information is identified on a course basis. The second piece that we pull together, again, this is due to the integration with the enterprise HR system, is we obviously on a daily basis pull down the CalHR information for all the employees, and those are obviously linked to the learners in their system. And any of you who have gone through and done this, there's sort of a verification screen where we figure out what your unique employee ID is, and then we can tie it to your CalHR record. Once that's tied together, there's this very important thing called a Cbid. Hopefully you can see this on my screen. And the Cbid basically tells us what your job description is. So if it starts with an S, we know that you're a supervisor. If it has CEA in it, then we know you're a CEA manager. I believe an M or an R was a manager. I forget the exact acronym. But we look at these first characters in the Cbid to figure out who you are, whether you're a supervisor or a manager, or if you've already started your training, you've been around for a while, then manage your 20-hour continuous training on those 2-year cycles. So that's the second piece to the pie, is now because of the enterprise HR, we know sort of what your job title is based upon your Cbid. The last piece, as Prab mentioned, is when you actually go into a learner, we have this thing called an appointment date, because everything starts with an appointment date in order for the algorithm to work. We need to know the day that you got that job title. So this person got their job title in 2015, right? So now they obviously had their 80 hours to get to their supervisor training, and then after that they have to do their 2-year cycles. And we actually will calculate your continuous training anniversary dates based upon that information. Now, one of the things that we're hoping in the near future is the appointment date was supposed to initially come from the CalHR feed, and initially was left out because they were having a problem getting that into the system. The enterprise HR team is actually working on that actively, so hopefully in the future, near future, that information comes as part of the employee records, and this step that Prab mentioned where they manually have to put in the appointment date will go away. So cross your fingers, hopefully that comes soon and it will be fully automated then. But by connecting all those dots, as Prab mentioned, you'll be able to see under the reports area is a new section called leadership reports over on the far left-hand side. And this is where we actually go through and generate those tedious reports that you have to do every year with a click of a button. So here I can go into supervisor training. This will find all your users who have a Cbid code that starts with an S. And now I can hit get data and generate this report. Again, I can see Prab is a supervisor. We can see the number of hours that she's completed. I can see the course that she took. And I can see that she is currently compliant based upon the rules. Same thing goes for manager training. Again, I can click on manager training, hit get data. Again, we'll find everybody in the system who has a Cbid for a manager and show who's in compliance and who's not. The third one is the CEA training. So again, this gets us a list of all the CEA managers in your system and generates the same report for the courses they've taken, the hours, and whether they're compliant or not. And the last one, which will be for everybody, is once they complete their initial supervisor or manager CEA training, then they have to manage or maintain that by doing 20 hours of training every 2 years on their anniversary dates. So you can see here all the different people, what their classifications are, what their expiration dates are, what their anniversary dates are, and whether they're compliant or not compliant. So again, my understanding that the poor training managers for a lot of these agencies had to spend many hours putting these reports together. And again, a lot of it was done in spreadsheets and trying to put things together and count hours. So the accuracy tended to be different per agency, whereas this really automates it. It makes it easy to generate. I will also give you a preview, or not a preview, but we're working on a learner dashboard module right now with the DSS group. So learners will have a new module on their learner dashboard when they log in, where they'll be able to see their classification and the courses and whether they're compliant or not as soon as they log in. So it's a new module being built for the learner dashboard as part of the DSS project that we'll share with all the agencies. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Tom.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks, Prab. That was fantastic. I'm sure that's a common challenge we see across the state. Now we're going to shift over and hand the ball to Debbie Fredericks, Chief of the Training Section at California Parks and Recreation, and she's going to talk about the upcoming POST module. Hey, Debbie. I think
there we go.
There we go. Now we got you.
How's it going? Hi, my name is Debbie Fredericks, and I'm the Chief of the Training Section at California State Parks. I've been there since 2015 and oversee all of the training statewide, including the State Parks Law Enforcement Academy. We currently have about 50 cadets in our State Parks Law Enforcement Academy, and one of our big challenges has been the integration of POST. We started working with Blackboard in 2020 and are rolling out Blackboard this summer. While I've been the Chief of the Training Section, there have been so many challenges with our antiquated training management system, which we call ETMS. Joe, don't cringe. ETMS, because I cringe every time I think of ETMS. And that has been a challenge since I came to State Parks, because basically it's a database that just tracked training histories and allowed our employees to sign up for courses, but didn't allow us to develop e-learning, or because it doesn't have a content management system, that just basically was a training history system. Blackboard will provide us a more modern, easy to use software as a service platform that will grow with us over time. Another challenge was starting an implementation during a pandemic, because but Blackboard was able to assist us because I lost 60% of my staff to contact tracing. Before that, it was great because I had a full staff, but as we were going into this implementation, all of a sudden they yanked all of my implementation staff to contact tracing. So basically I had, I think, 2 staff to stand up Blackboard. So that's been fun. The main challenge that we're going to be discussing today is the ability to better support our LEOs, or law enforcement officers, who have had to leverage an outdated system here at Parks, as well as a second system provided by the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, otherwise known as POST, in order to keep their training certifications up to date. At Parks, we provide internal training for law enforcement officers, and this data also needs to be fed into the POST system to maintain their certification. So in the past, this was manually done, which is incredibly time consuming for my staff, and they all do it themselves. So instructors themselves will now be able to send the rosters of completion when a course is finished to POST with just a single click, which is going to be huge time savings for my team. We are truly looking forward to a successful rollout and integration with POST, because I think this is a new historical thing for Blackboard, and we're looking forward to one system being able to do this. So thanks for your time, and I'm going to throw it over to Joe to show you how this POST integration is going to work.
Thanks, Debbie. All right, check in. Can I see my screen again, Tom? You good?
Yep, we see it.
Yep.
Awesome. So yeah, so Parks, another agency, probably one of our newer ones, the last ones that we're going live with, gave us a good challenge. there's this external system, as Debbie mentioned, called POST. And it was a little bit of a black hole, so we had to do some digging to figure out how to integrate the two systems. Having talked to the staff and sort of understanding a little bit how the flow is, there actually will probably be multiple areas where we can integrate with POST, but to start out was the simple thing of being able to send a roster of completions to POST. So what a lot of agencies do is they do their own internal training on their system. And this will be for their peace officers in a number of ways. But when they're done, in order for them to get credit for it, this information needs to be sent over to this POST system, which is what the peace officers use to sort of monitor their certifications and the required courses they need to take. In the past, my understanding was that somebody on the agency side would generate some sort of paper of those who completed the courses. And then somebody would take that paper and then manually go over to the POST system and fill out some more paperwork there. And eventually those enrollments would show up into the associated POST course. So the challenge was to try to automate that and make that as seamless as possible. So what we did is we kind of said, all right, POST courses and sections will tie to kind of our POST courses and sections. There's a little bit of a nomenclature there. So the idea is when we complete our enrollments in our course, use what we call REST Web Services, which is nothing more than an API to send those enrollments over. So the first challenge was to figure out how to link our courses to the POST courses. So under the course area, we have the ability to add or create new courses in the system. And you'll notice we added a new flag here called a POST course. So when this flag is set, this will allow us to now say, all right, this is going to be a POST course. So we need to somehow tie it to its corresponding course in the external POST system. And the way this is done, and again, as I click this, this is actually talking to a live POST system and pulling their information into ours. So the first thing is you have to choose the fiscal year. So I'll choose last year since there's some test courses in there. And then once you choose the fiscal year, then it gives you the option to choose the course number. So here's how we are linking our courses to the associated POST course in the system. So when somebody completes a course here, we will be able to just with one button click send those enrollments to this POST course. Now all the information out here is, again, you can provide the course, you can say people can self-register or not. And these are all the typical Blackboard registration pieces that a person would go through to complete the course. So the first step is this is where we tie our course to the POST course. Pretty simple. Now we've got some sample POST courses in here. So here's a section of the course. This is tied to the POST course. Again, we pull in the instructors, the dates, all that information. It's automatically filled out in our system based upon linking to that POST course. You can see here we have an enrollment history of people who've completed this course over time. As more and more people complete this course, this list will get longer and longer. When the instructor, or who the person is who's managing this course, is ready to send that information to POST, they just come back to this main page and there's a button right here, says send POST completed enrollment. So as Debbie mentioned, this is where the final piece comes in, is where we click on this, and this will send those enrollments over to POST as the final step and really bypasses a lot of paperwork that needs to be done. Now, I admit we're actually testing this as we speak, so we're figuring this information out. One of the additional pieces that we learned early on that we need to provide is some additional information about the trainees. So you'll see here when we actually have sorry, trying to find the guy's name. Jack Bolton. There we go. Jack is our test user in the system. He's actually part of the post team. You'll see here we actually collect a few extra information. So we need what we call their post ID, their post rank, which is a drop-down list of options, the agency they're part of, and their training status. So there's actually 4 extra fields. So we haven't completed the post testing yet. We're working on the final details to get the data into the system. But hopefully here in a short period of time, once we work out those wrinkles, then we'll have a full integration with post. Now what's interesting is this is really just solving a very simple use case of getting the enrollment from our system into their system with a single button click. But the web services actually provide options for other type of integrations, like being able to create courses in post or to pull completions of courses in post back into our system. So those are areas that we may investigate further to add additional features to the park system to make their post integration even further. So with that, I'll hand it back over. I think this is now goes back to Nick, right?
I'm gonna switch gears on you, Joe, and send it right back to you.
Okay, cool.
Let's dive right into the roadmap features for Genius registration, and then hand it to Nick when you're through these pieces.
Sorry, I messed up the schedule. You're right. I was supposed to do this. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
No problem. So yeah, so I wanted to go over some of the features that are coming out in our next release. So we're working with the Department of Social Services. Our plan is to upgrade all of the agencies to the latest version of the Genius software. So it'll be version 2.2, which all the agencies will be upgraded to. So currently everybody's on the 1.11 version. This provides out of the box a lot of extra enhancements. And we also have some roadmap features that we think will be of interest to all the agencies. So one of the initial ones is what we call QR codes. This is for attendance. So those of you who will have face-to-face courses and want to take attendance, we will send out emails with a QR code for each learner. They can show up in the face-to-face course. The instructor can scan the QR code with their iPhone or iPad or Android device, and it will automatically take attendance in the system. So one of those features, I believe our Child Family Services group will be taking advantage of that shortly. One of the features that I'll show here in a little bit is what we call the Ojt Module. Ojt stands for on-the-job training. We've had some people talk about having checklists. So in other words, somebody shows up, has to go through a checklist of skills, and based upon somebody, evaluator, checking off those skills, that shows up as a completion into the training system. Another one that we're working on that we've got preliminary approval to start working on is the integration to the CalHR catalog. So for instance, right now, what agencies do is they put the CalHR courses in their system and go through an approval process. And then a training coordinator or training assistant has to go over to the CalHR system and enroll that learner or one of their employees into the appropriate CalHR course. The idea is now we want to be able to bring that CalHR course right directly to the agency, show up as a separate tab in the catalog, and allow people to directly enroll into the CalHR courses without a training coordinator needing to be involved. So the ability to actually see and enroll automatically into the CalHR courses, but within the agency LMS. Again, a big feature that we've been pushing for a while. Another key feature is document prerequisites. So everybody's familiar with course approvals or a course being a prerequisite to another. A new feature that we've added is what we call document prerequisites. So the idea that before somebody can enroll in the course, they have to fill out some sort of form, maybe upload their resume, upload some application. That application will be routed for approval. And once it's approved, then the person can be enrolled into that course. We provide more what we call email template overrides. So right now, everybody has email templates that are sent out globally, but sometimes the agency might want to override that at the affiliation level or even at a course level. So with the new version, you'll be able to set email templates and override the global ones and have email-specific templates for a course and or session. There'll be new themes. So we've given more ability to theme your system yourselves and to have multiple themes per affiliation. So maybe different divisions want a different login page for each of the divisions. Again, a new enhancement there. And password security enhancements that people can take advantage of, like admin accounts will require a multi-factor authentication. We can set timeouts so that people can have to change their password if they're using manual accounts every 90 days or whatever is configured in the system. So there's some password security enhancements that I think some of the agencies might be able to take advantage of. Here's an example of a QR code that gets sent out in your email. We'll talk a little bit, and I'll show you, if we've got time, a little bit about the Ojt module, which is being developed for one of our clients, Federal Railroad Agency, that's going to be part of your core. The catalog, HR catalog information, again, this is where we mentioned where each of the agencies will have a their own local version of the CalHR catalog that they can enroll into without having dual management of that. And of course, the last piece, which we'll get into, will be the NIC piece. So I'm just going to share my screen for a moment. Oops, and share my screen. Cool. So here's our what we call a test system for the Federal Railroad Administration. This is where the Ojt module, again, sort of like the contract module, it's installed as a module. It shows up as a tab within your system. Oops, let me just log back in. The Ojt module is made up of what we call tasks and manuals. So the tasks are what people would do or have to demonstrate to whoever their observer or supervisor is. Again, you can click on these and see the information, you know, whatever the descriptions happen to be for each of those tasks. The tasks are grouped together in what we call manuals. So here I can have multiple manuals. When I drill down into the manuals themselves, you can see that they're made up of multiple tasks. And you can have multiple versions of the same manual. So here we've got this manual, which contains a bunch of these tasks that need to be completed in order to complete the task, or the manual itself, I'm sorry, the checklist. Once the manuals are created in the system, then you would associate them with what we call sections in the system. So here you can see that if I edit this section, I can associate this section with any manual that's in the system. So those are the pieces that come together to build your checklist, your manuals, and then tie them to courses. When a learner is associated with a course that has a manual associated to it, you'll see that there'll be a new tool that shows up on the learner dashboard screen. I'll just give it a second to log in, called the Ojt Modules or manuals. Here, the learner can come in and see all the manuals that have been associated to him or her and see their status of where they are. So these are ones that are pending that have been sent out to a learner or to an observer to check off. They haven't been completed yet. This one hasn't started yet, so for me, I can actually go ahead and click on this task and say I want to send it out to a specific trainer. I want to have this set up for today or completed by this week. And then I can provide notes. Please check off. Now this request is now sent off to this evaluator. It's now put into a pending state. And when this this evaluator sees that you completed that task or that skill, he will go ahead and approve this And now when all pending items in the manual are completed, the manual or course will be completed and added to your training record. So it's kind of a skills type of checkoff list that will be added to the core system itself. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And I'll pass it off to Nick Wachowski, who is your Client Service Manager.
Thank you, Joe. And Tom, are you able to share the slide? Thank you so much. So good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Wachowski. I'm on the Client Success team at Blackboard, and I support our state government business. I thought we'd switch it up here a little bit. I'm going to try something using the technology. Let's hope it agrees with us. But I wanted to put up a quick poll. So the poll is, are you familiar with the Blackboard community site? And the options are, yes, I use it all the time. Kind of, I've heard of it, but I don't use it. Or what? What's the Blackboard community site? So I'll give it 15 seconds or so here. Got a lot of responses coming in. Thank you. And it looks like a fairly decent mix. I'll show the results here for everyone. But I think we had 10 come in and say, what's the Blackboard community site? I'm not familiar with it. 9 said, kind of, but don't really use it. And 4 said they're relatively heavy users. So with that, that's what I wanted to talk about today. For those of you that aren't familiar, the community site is really a dedicated hub or portal where users can network together, they can interact with each other, as well as with Blackboard subject matter experts. So we have lots of lively discussion boards and webinars and resources and user group pages for targeted subsets of Blackboard users. The reason that I bring this up today is we've set up a specific user group site that's dedicated to California government Blackboard users, which I know many of you on the call today are. So we strongly encourage you to join not only the community, but the CalGov Blackboard user group site as well. The other reason that I wanted to mention this today was with regard to the recordings for today's session and last week's session. So for our existing Blackboard users, we're going to be posting the recordings and continuing the conversation around these modules on the CalGov user group site. And for those of you that don't use Blackboard yet, you'll still have access to all of that. We're going to be mailing them out individually for you. But I wanted to make sure that you were aware of the community if you weren't yet, and give you, if you are a California government user of Blackboard, give you the opportunity to join that California government Blackboard users group. So with that, I will flip it back over to Tom to wrap up the session today. And thanks so much.
Thank you, Nick. Let me progress the slide one more. So for any question and answer, please send those to either myself, Tom Herrmann, or to Bear Williams at Taborda Solutions. For those of you who are clients, you already have interacted and always interact with Bear and myself. But for those who haven't communicated with us, please reach out. We'd love to have any one-on-one meetings in order to answer any and all of those questions. Thanks again today to all of our speakers, to Melissa Glau, to Mindy Van Egden, Prab Bopari, and Debbie Fredericks, as well as most of all, Joe Favero. Thank you very much for today, Joe. And again, I'll leave this slide up so you have all our contact information. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of your week.